I asked you guys for your 7 days to die hot takes and told you it would probably be in a video, and in just 3 days you guys came back with 274 responses. That is a lot. Let's see if we can dive in and find some juicy takes to dig into. The game is not moving forward but sideways to keep the devs employed. Now that's an interesting one. I think that is definitely a hot take. Here's the thing, I don't think that that is true necessarily. We're kind of leaning into conspiracy territory here where we're like, oh, the devs need to keep themselves employed so they're slowing their game down. There's an adage, and we're on Wikipedia here to show it, called Hanlon's razor, and it is a rule of thumb that states never attribute to malice that can be adequately explained by stupidity. And another important philosophical razor here is Occam's razor, which is of course recommending searching for explanations constructed with the smallest possible set of elements, and is paraphrased as often, of two competing theories, the simpler explanation of an entity is to be preferred. The most logical explanation for why the fun pimps keep developing sideways is not that they're doing some conspiracy to try and keep themselves employed to make more money, because they employ like 100 people. If you wanted to make the most money off of developing the game in the slowest way, whilst making the most money for the core original developers, you would not hire 100 people and cut into your own taken of that, basically. So it's not the most logical explanation as to why the game is going slowly, and again, attribute it to incompetence over malice. Chances are they're just bad at managing the amount of people they have, and they're maybe bad at video game development. It makes a lot more sense than it being a conspiracy to keep people employed. And here's another element of that to think about. There is no reason to keep 7 days to die in development to keep all the developers employed. Even if you want to say that they're trying to keep all 100 of them employed, you can make other games. You would make more money making more games. So it would be more logical for them to want to make more money by making 7 Days to Die faster, leaving it behind, moving on to something else that they can sell you again. That's a more logical explanation, is they're just not that good at it and there's difficulties that we don't understand, rather than assuming it's some really unintelligent conspiracy to keep themselves employed, when in fact making more games would keep them better employed and would allow them to expand more and build more of a brand and stuff. Here's an interesting one that's actually a take. The trader system makes most of crafting, mining, and actual looting of the game redundant and takes away any semblance of a survival game 7 Days has left. I see where you're coming from, but I disagree. Ultimately, if you think trading takes away all of the semblance of survival 7 Days has left, it doesn't matter, because trading is a 100% optional mechanic. For example, learn by reading. You can circumvent it by using trading and by looting, but if you want to increase your crafting quality, you basically have to engage with the magazine system, and that drags the game's fun down for me. The trader system is a crutch. It's for new players who need the extra assistance learning what's in the game and gaining access to things earlier than they would if they were looting or if they didn't know where things spawned. It's also a crutch in a more positive sense for a certain type of player. When I was making my mods for 7 Days to Die, I kept in mind two types of player, called the settler and the nomad. And the settler player is the kind of person who sits in a base, mines, builds a bigger base, farms, and doesn't really explore too much. They don't enjoy the scavenging and exploring and clearing POIs aspect of 7 Days to Die necessarily. They like sort of a prepper, base builder, settlement builder almost experience in 7 Days, and the trader allows that playstyle to gain access to things in ways that they can't by using that one playstyle. Now, some people will say that's a bad thing because you should be forced to engage with more of the game, but I just disagree. I think that this trader allows the settler playstyle, who, if they have fun that way, that's fine by me. They're not hurting me by playing like that, and you can play like that within 7 days. If that's fun, knock yourself out. And the disadvantage of that playstyle is that, one, you're not going to get as much XP as a nomadic player, and two, you're going to have to rely on the trader to get you certain things. So you have to make money, so you have to gather resources in some other way to produce money to get stuff. It's an interesting alternate way to play the game that trading facilitates by filling in the gaps that exploration would allow. And for the nomadic player who doesn't have a base or doesn't go to their base very often, the trader allows them to lean on the crutch of being able to get food more easily and being able to get things like gasoline when they're out miles away from a chemistry station and stuff. These are inherent crutches that make the game easier, but these two extreme ends of the playstyle spectrum are facilitated by the existence of the trader, who can fill in the gaps of both the things they're doing to allow the person who really enjoys just going around exploring, looting and shooting to get food and other things they need, that they would need a workstation otherwise to acquire. And it allows the settler playstyle to just get things like, I don't know, loot and new guns that they wouldn't be able to get just sitting in their base and upgrading and stuff. And some people really hate the idea that people can just sit in their base and play this game, but I say if the playstyle is enjoyable to people, there's no harm in it being allowed. I'm not gonna light a fire under your ass and say you have to go out and explore. Play the game how you want if the systems facilitate it, and the trader facilitates those systems. So while I do understand what you mean by saying it makes the game redundant and takes away survival, if you feel that way, simply do not go to the trader. The trader allows alternate playstyles and new players to facilitate the game, and I don't think that's a problem. Would it be nice if there was a menu toggle to just turn them off so you could have the most hardcore experience? Absolutely. But not everybody's looking for the most hardcore experience all the time. Lockpicking is the most outdated, worst RNG's as shit mechanic in the game. I can understand why they wanted lockpicks to be consumable, but the 3-second time minimum has put me in some loops where I've gone through 20 fucking picks on one box. Not sure this qualifies as a hot take. I think most people agree lockpicking sucks major ass. But you are correct, yes. Lockpicking is an extremely underdeveloped mechanic. I think a more interesting way to do lockpicking, quite frankly, would be a pseudo like Fallout system where in Fallout and Elder Scrolls, you need to be a certain skill level to pick certain locks at all. Oh no, that's not a mechanic in Elder Scrolls, sorry. I'm mixing them up there. In Elder Scrolls, you can actually pick any locks you want, it's just really hard. In Fallout, you are completely barred from unlocking certain containers and then you get a chance at it. If the Fun Pimps don't want to put in a lockpicking mechanic, which I understand, it's hard to be original with a lockpicking mechanic and not just steal the Fallout system. So much so that Bethesda stole their own system and put it in Elder Scrolls. But better system I think would be, you've got the lockpicking skill, level 1, 2, 3, 4. If you are level 1, you can unlock basic locks instantly. It consumes a lockpick, but you get it open, and then level 2 can open up the next tier, level 3 can open up the next tier, level 4 can open up the next tier, and it consumes one lockpick, but it does it instantly. Boom, there you go. There's a lockpicking RPG system that isn't RNG frustrating, that still relies on you having some supply of lockpicks. They would have to probably tone down how easy they are to craft, maybe have them not even be craftable at all, but that's a minor balance problem in my opinion. Obviously, I think an actual minigame would be better for lockpicking, but if you're not willing to go that far, just remixing your looting mechanic so that it can fail every once in a while is stupid. So just lock it behind a lockpicking skill and have it consume a lockpick. There you go. No RNG, but it will be very frustrating in the same way, because in like a Fallout game, you find like an expert container and you're just like, I can't pick it. Oh well. And it's kind of disappointing in that sense. But at least in 7 Days to Die, you can bash the container open with a pickaxe, so you can always get in there, but lockpicking is a very convenient way to get in there in this new system I just came up with. The Fun Pimps themselves are indignant that mod authors get more love than they do, and they refuse to implement popular mod changes out of spite. This is my hot, smooth take. No. Fun Pimps have taken mechanics from mods. It's just that they have a very particular way they want the game to work, and if a mod gets in the way of that, they don't do it. Things like lockable inventory slots were a popular mod before 7 Days put it in. Things like the recipe pinning was a popular mod before 7 Days put it in. There were mods that introduced zombies that were harder than radiated zombies, and they put them in, kind of in a shit way, but that's whatever. Pipe guns were in popular mods before 7 Days put it in. Particular Darkness Falls had pipe guns long before 7 Days did. So it's not that the Fun Pimps are indignant that mod authors get more love, it's just that they have a very particular way they want the game to work, and they don't really care if a mod is popular. If a mod is popular and they don't see a problem with it in their game, it does get implemented completely without credit or any acting like they copied it from a mod. Actually, they completely pretend like they invented it. That's the bigger problem. No pipe gun modder ever got any credit for the pipe guns being added to the main game. No recipe pin mod, no lockable storage mod. They just added them in and just acted like it was normal. I miss large cities in the pine forest biome. I agree. I don't know if it's a hot take, but I certainly agree, because like, why limit it like that? It ruins some of the fun, I think, of random gen worlds when you know the forest biome is just shit and you should immediately get to the desert to gain access to actual towns that are useful. So yeah, I agree. And this is one of those things that calls back to what I said earlier about like the nomadic and the settler playstyle. The Fun Pimps did that to light a fire under your ass to force you basically to leave the forest biome, and I don't like mechanics like that. Yes, you should want to go to these other things, there should be other incentives, but they took content out of the forest biome because they thought the forest biome was too powerful, and that's just really annoying. What if I want just a world that's covered in forest biome? Well, I can't random gen towns into it. Well, big towns. Spears should go back to having a throwing mechanic. That is a hot take, and I'll tell you why. Because spears were shit when they had the throwing mechanic. Everybody hated them. I had comments every day talking about how we needed a spear buff. I hated the throwing thing. Everybody prefers the power attack. Not everybody, that's obviously a generalization, but loads of people prefer the power attack. But I will offer you some diplomacy here. Spears work a lot better now that you can deal damage without throwing your weapon away, which would often miss. And, you know, it's just a stupid way to fight through the spear because you would do power attack damage, but it would miss sometimes and then you're fucked. And throwing away your main melee weapon just isn't worthwhile when you consider that like clubs and sledgehammers just have power attacks and work. But the throwable spears were cool, and I think they should implement javelins as an alternate spears playstyle where they have the same mechanics as old spears, but they stack so that you can throw multiple of them at a time, and they're easier to craft. So that if you lose those spears, as did happen back in when we had the spears that were throwable, you lose like 10 forged iron, a leather, and a glue, rather than losing unbelievable amounts of resources on the craftable spears. And also just a second playstyle would be really cool. An alternative to that would be adding a throwability to the spear alongside the power attack, but the problem still emerges of throwing away your primary melee weapon, losing potentially a lot of resources, and consoles might not have a way of throwing that. Like there might not be a button combo they can work with. I have to imagine console is already struggling with the amount of button inputs they have available to them versus what 7 Days to Die can do, so I don't know if you really want to do that. Separate throwable javelins, which stack to 10, and maybe you can get like wooden javelins or stone javelins, iron javelins, and steel javelins, could be a fun alternate playstyle for spears. The devs will never make the game you want. No, they'll make the game they want, and then we'll decide if we like it, and that'll decide if anybody buys their next game. They should include scenarios like Rebirth has. I'd like to have the option of playing to a storyline or just going open world. Totally unrelated point, I think they have absolutely nailed some of the sound effects. The soil digging and rock breaking sounds are almost therapeutic. They probably took them from an asset pack, I'm not gonna lie to you. So the storyline and open world thing, I'm pretty sure is what they're gonna do. I think they said a while ago they would have like a storyline mode and a sandbox mode. Sandbox mode basically being what we have now, and storyline mode being like, you know, being centered around quests. I imagine it might be the case that if you play on Navisgain, you get the story, and when you play on random gen, you just don't. So they're probably gonna do that. 7 Days to Die is more of an RPG than a sandbox. Certainly a very hot take because it's completely incorrect. Let's look at an RPG for a moment. What does it have? It has a progression system. Check. It has quests. Well, it does have quests, but there's 3 or 4 quests and they're just repeatable. They're not actual story missions. RPGs tend to have stories. Is there a story? No. RPGs tend to have NPCs. There are 5 NPCs in this game that don't do anything other than sell you things or give you quests. That's a very, 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 very shit RPG. Now, a sandbox game has everything you need from a sandbox game except for a tolerable progression system. Console Legacy version is the best version of 7 Days to Die. No. It ran like ass. I was there, man. Lots of downright cool takes, so I'll throw in mine. I think learn by reading, is more fun than any version of learn by doing they would implement. I like the idea of having to further your knowledge on related topics through reading before being able to craft high quality end gear. It also encourages exploring, what is probably the strongest aspect of the game, and that is the attention of detail in POIs. I think for a long time people wanted open world games where you could actually go inside and explore every structure in sight, and this game accomplishes that. Going on a scavenger hunt in all these locations I think is a good thing. Running these POI dungeons is really the only activity beyond base building you can do. So you find what you want and rank up just by playing. No, you don't. You rank up by playing this specific playstyle. If you don't play this specific playstyle, you don't rank up at all. The base bitch in every multiplayer server is level 1 in crafting and everything. They are punished for playing the way that they want to, and you said that it encourages exploring. No. It demands exploring, and that is the problem with the learn by reading system. The only other way to get good gear other than going looting is going to the trader, because you can either loot the good gear or you can loot the books, and that's stupid. Why are we looting looting the books and looting the good gear. Why is this mechanic doing the same thing in two different ways? No, another progression system, please. Anything. It doesn't have to be learned by doing. It can be what we had in like Alpha 19, where you just put points in skills and you become better at crafting things. That was fine. It was fine. It worked. This idea that we should be encouraged to explore. It's like, you should never need to be encouraged to explore. If you want to explore, you will explore. And if you don't want to explore, you shouldn't be forced to. If the issue is that you can't mine and build everything from scratch, letting your friends do all the looting, or simply don't want to, I'm not sure why you want to play a game in which you openly dislike or refuse to engage with at least half of its content. Because it's a survival sandbox game and you can play it however you want. That's the fucking premise of the genre. How many people do you think engage with at least half the content in Minecraft? Almost none of them. Most of them mine, craft, and build. There's so much more to do in Minecraft, most people don't do it. And that's fine, because if you sit down for an hour and play a game and have fun, you played it correctly. You shouldn't be forced to engage with any percentage of the content that you're just not interested in. That's like if they made this amazing, huge game, right? Imagine a game where you can do literally anything, but you only engaged with 10% of the mechanics because there was just so much to do. Are you an idiot for not engaging with the other 90% of the game when there's just too much to do? No, you play the part of the game you like, and you don't have to engage with every single mechanic, certainly not even half of the mechanics, to have fun. The point is to have fun. If you have fun engaging with just the mining in 7 Days to Die, more power to you. That's fine. I'm not going to critique you for that. It's clear that some people do have a mindset where you should be forced to engage with every system a game has, and you just shouldn't. You just shouldn't. It's like you should be forced to engage with nothing. You should want to engage with things, and you should be rewarded for engaging with things. If I want to go looting, I can go and loot and get stuff, and I'm rewarded for it. You said about like mining and building everything from scratch. That's how most other survival games work. They have schematic systems, and like if you look at Project Zomboid, you have to read the occasional book to learn how to make specific things, but you get better at crafting by doing it. If you look at something like Ark Survival Evolved, you learn new things by spending points you get every time you level up, and you learn to make special versions of them by looting high-level schematics. But Ark doesn't make you go out and find 25 narcotic schematics before you make narcotic. You just have to be a certain level. I think the idea that being able to build, mine, farm, and generally make everything from scratch is a core aspect of most survival games. Yes, some very high-level stuff will have to be acquired in another way to just make it more interesting, but I think most things in survival games should be just acquirable from the start. If you spawned in a world in 7 Days to Die with no POIs in it, you couldn't progress at all beyond zombie loot bags, which is a happenstance mechanic. I don't think they meant for that to be the point, and I think that's dumb, because every other survival game you spawn in on a desert island, you can progress. Is that realistic? I don't know, but it's more fun. Great game as is, not one change needed. Okay, well, come back in a year and tell us if you're still playing on 2.5 then, and we'll keep waiting for them to make a better game in the meantime. Apparently 2.5 is all you're looking for, so you can just stay there. If you made a PvE Rust mod with zombies, POIs, and blood moons, it would be 100% better than 7 Days to Die. I haven't played Rust, I can't comment, but probably. I just want to farm and build a house. Okay. You can do that. Is that a hot take? I don't know if this is a hot take, but I honestly really like the way the more junky guns look over the proper looking guns. Things like all the pipe weapons, lever action, and shovel stock on the AK and the can silencers. I mean, it's not really a take, it's just you have a preference towards junky looking guns. That's fine. You're allowed to. Obviously, the developers of the game have a preference towards that. It's just an opinion. I just think it doesn't make sense, and I prefer the look of cleaner guns. This game isn't like set 200 years after a nuclear apocalypse. It's not Fallout. Why are the guns junky? It just doesn't need to be that way, and I prefer the look of clean guns. But if you like it, you like it. I don't know if it qualifies as a hot take. I would have to find out more about what people think there. The agility tree is too overpowered, and I hope they never change it. This is the problem with this format of video, is like I can't ask this person any more questions about why they think it's too overpowered. The thing about the agility tree is it's completely actually kind of worthless, but it's fun. The reason it's kind of worthless but fun is it has lots of really fun perks that let you kill zombies really efficiently, but like, if you're playing single player and you start with an agility build, how are you going to get resources? How are you going to get better gear? Agility is all combat and genuinely zero utility, which means that in single player, you're at a disadvantage, and in multiplayer, you're a fucking liability, because you contribute nothing to the team except for the ability to kill zombies, and every other build can kill zombies extremely efficiently as well. It's a really good like late game one where you can just make yourself really OP with combat perks, but 7 Days to Die isn't just about combat. that. You can get a full loadout of legendary equipment without going to the wasteland, and you can buy crucibles before day 14 if you scrap cars, sell brass, need fixing. So I disagree with the first half because I don't think it's a problem that you can get a legendary equipment without going to the wasteland, again because I don't think you should be forced to play the same way. If you do a bunch of stuff and get really good at crafting or get really good at trading, you should be able to get good gear from it. I don't think you should be forced to go and loot in the wasteland if that's not what you want to do. That's not the play style you're going for. It's not like a PvP MMO where you have to go to the dangerous region to get the highest level gear. It's a survival game. Like, there's lots of ways to progress. The fact that you can buy crucibles before day 14 if you scrap cars and sell brass needing fixing is maybe more true. I think cars are kind of OP in this game. They just give you everything and you can sell it all. I think if they reduce the selling price of most of the stuff that you can get from cars and maybe even reduce the amount of stuff you got from cars, that problem would be probably solved. But also, I just don't think it's that big of a deal that you can get a crucible before day 14. The only thing you can do with that if you rush a crucible is get steel, right? And how does that help you? You still need to get all the legendary parts and you need to get all the weapon parts, which are loot only, and you need to be able to like actually craft the steel to your gear. The only thing that gives you is steel to upgrade your base to steel, and do you need a steel base before day 14? Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this video. We only got through like maybe 20 of the 200 comments, and definitely a lot of the comments were just kind of like statements or they were repeats to the same takes, but there's definitely a huge chunk more of hot takes we can look through. But if you want to see that, you have to let me know down in the comments, and if I do end up making it, I will put it on the screen for you to click right here. And you know what, why don't we get kooky with it? 1,000 likes and I will put out a second episode of this series if you want to see more. And indeed, if you've got any other hot takes, let me know down in the comments and we can keep the series going a little bit longer if you guys want. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.